An 80-year-old California landlord was attacked by one of his tenants with a samurai sword after he filed eviction against them, but he was successfully able to defend himself. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have kind of a good news, kind of a bad news story for you, and it's coming out of California. So obviously, California, it's a wild place, okay? Crazy types of crimes, all sorts of crazy laws and rules and regulations that make being a landlord very, very difficult there, right? So this landlord in California almost lost their life during an eviction, and it is a horrible type of situation to be put in. It's one of those nightmare stories, right? This is one of the reasons why I wouldn't want to personally be there filing eviction without police there. And even with the police there, that doesn't mean that your life won't be at risk, okay? I've heard all sorts of crazy stories throughout the entire country of evictions gone wrong where landlords and police have lost their lives, okay? People, this gets very, very serious. This is a very serious issue for people, right? And you want to handle this as safely as possible. So, yeah, the landlord in this story, he was actually attacked by his tenants with a samurai sword, and they actually stabbed him through the chest with it. But fortunately, he was able to defend himself, and, let me just say that one of the tenants will never be bothering him again. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, okay? So for the landlords out there who have, gone through an eviction, have you ever been threatened, with physical harm by one of your tenants before? Even if you haven't been through an eviction, has a tenant ever threatened, your safety? Have you ever felt unsafe in the presence of one of your tenants? I personally have not, but, I attribute that fact to the fact that, for the evictions that I have had done, I've used property management, and they're the ones who had to handle it, and, it didn't end up going badly, luckily. So anyway, let's get into this article. So this article is coming from NBCBayArea.com, and it says, Vallejo, 80-year-old Vallejo landlord attacked with samurai sword. Carl Lind, the landlord's son, said the tenants had basically taken over the property and taken advantage of his generosity. And there is a video that goes along with this article, and I'll play that for you right now.
An eviction notice on them. They found out about the eviction notice. They figured, I guess, if they killed him, that he couldn't be evicted.
But McMillan says Lind had a gun and shot two of his attackers.
There was one that was shot dead, and the other had 3 bullets in her.
This whole thing is just, it's bizarre. It's like it doesn't feel real.
Carl Lind can't believe what his father has endured. He says the tenants had basically taken over the property and...
All right, you saw that video, so let's get into the article. An 80-year-old Vallejo man is in the hospital recovering from an attack with a sword. Friends and family told NBC Bay Area this is a result of an eviction that turned violent and left 2 people wounded and 1 dead. Police aren't releasing many details regarding the case, but are trying to figure out what led to the confrontation. Family members of the Kurt Lind, the 80-year-old landlord, said he was attacked with a samurai sword by his tenants and had to take matters into his own hands. You can see where he had his hand on the door and was banging on the door, and he was sitting here saying, "I'm dying," explained Patrick McMillan, a tenant. He showed NBC Bay Area how he found his landlord early Sunday morning, crouching over, bleeding with a sword through his chest. So yeah, one of the other tenants who happened to be there, probably, was able to get this guy some help. Fortunately, good Lord, this is a bad situation. So these tenants attacked this landlord and stabbed him through the chest with a samurai sword. Okay, that's insane. But, fortunately, he didn't die. I'm sure he's in very, very serious condition in the hospital right now. But man, this could have ended very badly for this landlord. And, I would hate to see that sort of thing happening. He banged on my door, and I woke up and came out, McMillan explained. He said, "I'm dying," and he had blood squirting out and a sword sticking through him. McMillan said Kurt had been brutally attacked by other tenants of the Vallejo property who Lind was in the process of evicting because they hadn't paid rent in years. They'd been here for 3 years and wouldn't leave. It's taken him a long time to get into court and get an eviction notice, McMillan said. They found out about the eviction notice and figured if they killed him, they couldn't be evicted. So yeah, this guy, years they haven't paid rent, right? And I guarantee it was caused by the whole eviction moratorium nonsense where, people were unable to evict tenants for, in California for a couple of years, okay? So this guy had these tenants in there not paying rent and he couldn't get rid of them, and he finally gets through court and gets that eviction notice. They find out and, they're not happy, okay? And they attack him. And man, I mean, horrible, horrible situation. McMillan told NBC Bay Area Lind had a gun and shot 2 of his attackers. There was one shot dead and the other had 3 bullets in him. Carl Lind, the landlord's son, said the tenants had basically taken over the property and taken advantage of his generosity. So yeah, this is a problem with a lot of small landlords, right? They feel, very sympathetic to the plight of their tenants. They're, they give them a lot of breaks and, they get taken advantage of. I don't want to put the blame on this guy though, okay? He's the victim in this situation. Not only was he getting taken advantage of in terms of, they were just stealing from him in terms of they were just in his property and not paying rent, but then they attack him on top of that. I mean, come on, this guy was more than generous enough to allow you to stay in his property for years without paying rent. And how do you repay him? You stab him in the chest, okay? But you know what? This guy, if nothing else, he was smart enough to know that, hey, I need to be able to defend myself and I'm going to have my gun with me. And when he got attacked, he shot one of these tenants dead and he shot the other one, put 3 bullet holes in him, okay? I'm glad to hear that, I'm glad that he was able to defend himself. I'm glad that, that might be the reason that he's not dead right now, just because he had that gun with him, okay? And you don't hear a lot of these stories about people who successfully used guns for self-defense, but here's a good example of one right now, okay? If you are a landlord who does this sort of thing, self-manages, is doing the eviction notices and stuff by yourself, right, and don't have a property manager or don't have someone else with you, right, my suggestion is, if in your state you need to have a concealed carry permit, get it. Okay, get a firearm, legally possess it, and then at least you'll have a small layer of, of protection. Now, that isn't total protection, right? But it's better than nothing. Okay, and I just want to make sure that landlords out there are safe. He just wanted this as a place to let artists or woodworkers, electricians to be able to come and live in a little trailer and have a container where they could work and put their tools and have a safe place, he explained. Vallejo police said one person is in custody, but they haven't been able to figure out that person's true identity. Wow, it's kind of crazy when you're sitting there thinking, okay, the police can't figure out what the name of this person is, even though they got this person in custody. I'm assuming this is the second person that the landlord shot, okay, that survived. So, but they don't know what their name is. I mean, come on. Now, you got a question. Does the landlord even know the true identity of this person? You see, this is part of my issue, okay? If you're going to be a landlord, you need to operate like a business. You need to be getting IDs of your tenants. When I put tenants into my units, I actually made copies. I took a photo with my phone of their driver's licenses, okay? Because I needed to know, their pertinent information just in case there was an emergency or, something happened. So, yeah, I mean, this guy, trying to be a nice guy, trying to run, not even run a business, but just trying to give people a place to live. And this is a horrible consequence of that situation.